So, what I did while you guys were away, I'm just getting us to the quest. What I did while you guys were away, not you were away, while I was away, I finished the Summoner, and I finished the Unified quest for it. So we could focus on the 6.2 in this stream, because I can't really stream for like super long time, because I'm still trying to like let my voice recover a bit. But it was quite interesting, because now I'm thinking, like, we saw in the latest patch, like, we're going to the 13th to try to find... I can say, while you were away, while I was away, it's... I mean, for me, I was here. It was just that I didn't allow you to participate. Let me maybe move things out of the way. How is the camera? Camera is fine. So, I finished the quest line yesterday, which was quite good. And I learned about what happened to the, like, who the Shadow Maker, Shadow Keeper was. I learned that the Elven lady at the bar was sort of the bad guy, but that she is from the 13th, and this was her way of trying to save her planet. So everything is kind of leading us back to the 13th, and I do kind of like that they started hinting towards the 13th in Shadowbringers, because now it kind of looks like we're going to be going into the... So, just before we start, I've been thinking, and I'm going to try to get this out in like logical way, because sometimes it's just hard for me to speak. I'm thinking the next expansion pack might be about the 13th, like about saving that world, potentially, because they are introducing the 13th. They're introducing like these different enemies there, or like different, not enemies necessarily. I think they're gonna be enemies, but they're introducing the different lords there, who are like elementally connected. I have a feeling this is them setting up for the next expansion, where we're gonna have to deal with the 13th. That would be like really interesting, because that is the planet the Asians just gave up on. They just went like, oh, whoops. We really messed up that one. It's not fixable, so we can't let it join with the source. But I think maybe we can do something about it, or maybe it's just gonna become like a huge problem. But I think next expansion pack, my theory right now at least, is next expansion pack is gonna be related to the 13th. Either by going there, or there becoming some sort of a link between it. Like, I think when I finish this patch, obviously I'm gonna have like maybe more concrete thoughts, but that's what I'm leaning on. I'm also kind of excited that now I'm catching up. I can start making like, oh, this is what I think might happen. And then I'm probably gonna be wrong, but I don't mind being wrong. I think theorizing can be really fun, but at the same time, I don't. I try not to cling to my own theories too much. Well, Tala says, I do wonder about that. In other 1, 2, 3 stuff, it was usually its own contained thing. And then is the 5 was directly bleeded into the next expansion. If that makes any sense. That does make sense. The thing was, like, the 1 to 3 was usually a continuation, though, of the story that we play through in the expansion. But we kind of ended the Endwalker story. Like, it's done. Like, yeah, we are having a little bit with the raid, but it doesn't feel as much of a continuation. Like in Heavensward, we were still dealing with Ethok and like Estinian being possessed and everything. In Stormblood, we were dealing with the war still, and like trying to do the peace talks with Garlemald, and that not really working, and they were making like the chemical plague and stuff. In Shadowbringers, we were still working on getting everybody home, but in this one, because the story ended like with the trailer in a way. Like we fixed everything, even though we're learning a little bit more about the past, and we do have some issue with Pandemonium. It feels like they are taking, like I feel, because it would make sense to me, is they've ended this really big story and they ended it really, really well. So now I feel like they're grabbing the chance. I should really move my camera a bit. Hold on. Like, oh, I can't move me. I'm just sitting weird in the camera. It feels like they have to like start building up something new right away, because they've ended a 10-year story and it ended in a very satisfying way. And that's actually a really risky thing to do when you think about it, because I think a lot of people could have just walked away after ending the story. Like, it was done. The story they had been working on for so long was just over. We found like Meteon, we saved the world, everything is sorted. I feel like a lot of people could at that point be said like, thank you, this was amazing, I'm gonna put the game down and now I'm gonna go away. By ending the story, they gave us a promise of starting something equally good. Like, yes, this story was amazing, it was so nice, but now it's time for you to get a new story. And we promise it's going to be as good. And I feel they are being smart if they are starting the preparation for it right now, instead of doing something different in between. I think they need to immediately go like, look, here is the story. This is what we're starting. I'm going to make you interested. Because if you're interested, you're going to stick around. Because they have to make that promise quickly. Simply, like, not because the other story was bad, but because how good the other story was. They do run the risk of people being like, I am fully satisfied, now I can just go. And they don't want that. They want us to stay, obviously, because it would be a terrible business if they just ended it and everybody just walked away, even though if they walk away super satisfied. So I think they are starting something right away. Let me see. You all have been like posting. Okay, UCP has confirmed the structure for Endwalker will be different. In essence, 0.0 ended the story, this time and not 0.3, exactly like the other ones did. He also said there's a major event in 6.5 that will set up the next expansion. So what I'm thinking is going to happen in 6.5 is we are now going into the void back and back. We know void portals can be open. We know they can be different sized. I think we're either going to have like... what I'm just going to go with is I think we're going to have a really, really, really big void portal open up. Like potentially the sky. Like if you played World of Warcraft, think about Shadowlands. The sky, like in that idea, like the sky opened between the Shadowlands and Northrend. I'm thinking it could be something like that. We could have, it could be everywhere, or like in some place, like a massive portal is gonna open, like way bigger than we have ever seen before, allowing things to just bleed through. Or like we are going in for like the next unification calamity in some way. The 13th stuff is kind of related. It's still due to Asians, true. And the dragon. We're still kind of cleaning up the mess and tying it up. I think like the Asian story, it's so important to the core of the game. Like the things that happened, I think we're never going to be able to get fully away from that story, like that this is where it started, because the worlds are still shattered. But we can't put them back together without massacring billions of people. And while I'm like all for murdering everybody, that's even a little bit much for me. But yeah, I agree with Letala. I am also like fully hooked. Like they own my mind by this point. It was funny how Joseph P had to talk about the game before and around the Endwalker launch. Every single time he spoke publicly, he basically had to shout from the rooftops that Final Fantasy XIV as a whole was not ending, that there was more coming. Yeah, that is because it felt like such a final, because that story is ending. They have to be very sure that everybody understands we are ending a story, not the game. Because if people get the feeling the game is ending, they are gonna jump ship. That is just what tends to happen. When MMOs feel like they are over or ending, a lot of the player base starts jumping ship and the game enters into a death spiral. And that would be a terrible fate for Final Fantasy to go into right now. But MMOs don't work that way. They do, because for people to want to play an MMO, like, there's always going to be a core player base that keeps on playing. But you just don't end the story? Well, what happened to, like, point one? Not point one. Like, think about what happened to the original. The story ended. The world was destroyed. But yeah, usually you don't just end the story, but if the feeling of the game going into its sort of like twilight years, the player base can drop dramatically, making the game unsustainable to keep up or like to put as much resources into it, and it enters the death spiral. We have a lot of games that are in, like a lot of MMOs that are in that process, even though they aren't, like there are still people who play them. There is still some new content coming out for them, but not as much because the player base is reducing. And because the player base is reducing, people get the feeling the game is ending, therefore it reduces more, causing the spiral. Final Fantasy XIV isn't an MMORPG, it's an RPG MMO, that is very true. Remember what Emmett said? Yes, he said like there's a lot of more things to explore. I think that was a very good thing to have there at the end. Have Emmett remind us that we are a scene, we are the traveler, we are the person that's supposed to go around and see everything, and that there is so much we haven't seen. And he pointed at specific things we haven't seen, like what is under the empty and stuff like that. It's like, you don't know about these things. Like, you can't be a scene if you don't at least go see these things. And we haven't seen all of them. That was a very clever story, like, device for an in-game character to basically tell the player base. Like, they're telling the character, but they're also telling the player, we aren't done. We are ending this tale, but there is so much more. Exactly, Malisity, the reflections, the new world. There is so much to explore, but it's so important to remind people of it. Because MMOs ask you to put so much time into them. It is a huge time commitment, to the point that many people can only play a single MMO. And while some people get like really stuck in a single MMO, there's a lot of people who are always looking for the one that's gonna be the best, the one that's gonna run the longest. And if they get the feeling it's not gonna be running much longer, or if it's gonna be slowing down, the story isn't gonna be as good, they start looking for the next big thing. On that bit of dialogue, UCP actually recently confirmed that the specific speech and getting it right is a huge part of what actually delayed the Endwalker launch. Yeah, like it feels it was so important to get that right, because that is Ahmed not speaking to the Warrior of Light, he's speaking to the player. Like, indirectly. Ishikawa said it was more for writers not to lose momentum and realize there is more for them to write about. Like, we believe that. exactly. It's also for the writers. It's everybody had to be reminded, like, we have done this huge story, but it's not the end. And I think that's just, it's important. I have a cat taking a bath. Hello. No, I don't need a bath. You're a silly bean. But yeah, I think what they did, like the way they ended the game with that speech and with Yossi P being just very adamant in every single interview, going like, story is not over. Like, this story is over. Like, this chapter is over. But the story of the Warrior of Light is not over. There is more. There is more we want to say. And then ending it well, tying it up as neatly as they did. I think that did amazing in helping the player base feel secure, in that we could like trust them to give us more good story. I don't think every MMO would be able to do this. Because this is something that requires immense amount of planning and immense amount of respect for the player base and the story. And I feel like they did that. So that's why I can at least trust them to go like, I want to dive deep into it, into the game. And I continue playing it to see where the story goes, because I have been given an excellent story. And I know I'm going to get like another excellent story, which is exciting.